so with the new Andor trailer out, I noticed something when I first watched it, and people didn't notice this, which I'm surprised about. But this was also in the last trailer as well, which is clone troopers. Now, you may ask, why are clone troopers in a show that is set in the original trilogy and deep into the Empire? I mean, like that, close to the original trilogy. Well, it's because I think there's going to be some sort of, like, flashback period to the early Empire, because we don't know, the Empire used clones for a brief time, and that's what I'm assuming is happening, or it's set in the Clone Wars, one of the two. But I'm surprised, because over the past decade, there has been so much that has changed with Lucasfilm and the way they've handled the prequel trilogy. Like, when they first started, they scrapped the Clone Wars show, they canceled it, they just didn't care about the prequel trilogy, or anything in that time period, because when Rebels first came out, it wasn't really about anything from the Clone Wars. Nothing was mentioned until the season 1 finale. Then as the seasons went on, it tied more into the Clone Wars, so that was mainly because it was animation, and I guess Lucasfilm didn't really care. But when it came to the films, you see the evolution of Clone Wars content. As you see, like with The Force Awakens, there was barely anything to do with the prequel trilogy at all. Just the word Sith, just muttered out, like halfway through the film, there was nothing. But as the films kept going along, I noticed, specifically in the sequel trilogy, I saw more and more references to the prequel trilogy, like Luke in The Last Jedi talking about, just quickly talking about the events of the prequel trilogies and The Rise of Skywalker. There's a bunch of mentions of the Clone Wars time period just through throwaway lines. Also even the spin-off films, the biggest one being in Solo, we get to see the Pike Syndicate, which did appear in the Clone Wars, which I didn't know that at the time when I first saw Solo back in 2018, but like watching the Clone Wars, I'm like, oh, that's where they're from. Okay, I thought they were just something made up for the film. No, they've been around, and like, oh, that's very cool. Now we're in the Mandalorian time period with the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, the Kenobi series, now with Andor. All four deal with the Clone Wars time period, like all of it, and it's sweet. We get to see that more and more, to the point where in Kenobi, the entire show is basically a follow-up to Revenge of the Sith. Like, it's a good continuation of the trilogy, which I think that is the biggest change in Lucasfilm, which is they're accepting the Clone Wars era, because most fans grew up during that time period. They're now adults. They want to see stuff from when they were a child. It's nostalgia bait. But Lucasfilm underestimated the prequel fandom, because, you know, look at Solo, lost money at the box office, Rise of Skywalker made $1 billion. It's clear that people want to see Clone Wars stuff. Most older fans aren't that vocal in the Star Wars community. I mean, yes, there are older people who are vocal in the community, but not to the extent of people my age in their 20s who grew up on the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars show, that just want to see that time period more explored. And I think that Lucasfilm is slowly realizing that over the years, because in The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams wanted to actually destroy Coruscant, like blow it up with the other 4 planets that were blown up in when Starkiller blew up the planets in the New Republic, which that would have been terrible. Fans would have been pissed off. I would have been mad. I mean, you can't just blow up Coruscant. That's stupid. You can't do that. Good thing Lucasfilm stopped him. But like I said, with The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, you can see them slowly realizing, oh, more people need to... We need more recognition for the prequel trilogy, like that Clone Wars time period, but it was too little too late. And I think even now, it's too late. They messed up. Honestly, Episode 7, 8, and 9 should have just been a combination of both trilogies. From even stuff maybe from the Clone Wars show. Because a lot of stuff from the Clone Wars show is very important, and it'd be very cool to have follow-up stories on that. And you can do like you can do a kind of a mini reset for people who haven't seen the show to kind of introduce them to this stuff, because the whole stuff was Mandalorians started in the Clone Wars, and it continued in Rebels, And for people who watched Mandalorian, it didn't really matter because it was kind of a mini reset. You know, they introduced you to a new character, and you get to experience the Mandalorian culture through that show first, most likely for a lot of people, because they didn't watch the animated stuff. But if you did watch the animated stuff, it was still fine. There was a balance. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni found a balance when they make their shows to not cater to one fan base. Now, it came to Kenobi, I understand where they were coming from with the Clone Wars, well, more prequel trilogy stuff, because people seen those films. It was a bigger thing. It was in the movie theaters. It's a episodic film, not stuff from the shows. That's a different thing. This is more supplementary material. And I hope with Andor, it does both. It does what I said. It combines both trilogies together. In the 3 seasons, I hope that we get to see the Clone Wars era, or around that time period, which we are, because we already seen footage of it already from the trailers. I have no doubt in my mind that we're in a Clone Wars era renaissance. We have been since the Mandalorian came out, reintroducing us to Ahsoka, Cad Bane, you know, all these characters and like factions from that time period we're now seeing again in live action, which some of it looks weird, but it's very, very nostalgic for people who grew up with this stuff. Like, I didn't grow up with the Clone Wars show, but I did grow up with the prequel trilogy, and I do have some nostalgic stuff for it. I think this is a good thing. A renaissance is good for that time period because it shows that the story was really good. What George Lucas has made with that trilogy is better than the original trilogy, in my opinion. And I hope that more people get to see it that way. I hope Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni continue with The Mandalorian to push what George Lucas wanted to tell in the prequel trilogy. It was just badly executed in that trilogy, which was his fault. He should have gotten another director to direct the film. He should have just been a writer or some sort, because he's not good at directing. But it is what it is. And it's up to, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to fix, to kind of explain to people, this is what the prequel trilogy meant. And hopefully that's the case with Andor and Mandalorian and any other show, the Ahsoka series as well. Like, I want those series to have the ideas and stuff that was started in the prequel trilogy to be kind of retextualized and to have the casual audience rethink those films, so when they watch them again, they won't see it as cringy, unwatchable films. They'll see it as, okay, I see what he was going for, but it wasn't executed properly. That's how I see the prequel trilogy. That's how a lot of other people see it. But for a lot of casual fans, those 3 films are still unwatchable to them. But I think times are changing, and we need to see for the future. Andor is the first step in all of this. And this all stemmed from me looking very closely at the clone troopers in the Andor trailers, because those are clone troopers. I noticed they looked weird, and that's how this whole entire conversation was started. So I'm going to end it here. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. I'm going now, so goodbye everyone.